And welcome. The perfect impeachment, the perfect phone call, the perfectly insane presidency of Donald John Trump. This week on the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, I, Halli Casser-Jayne, and my partner in politics, former White House Correspondent Matthew Cooper, take a perfectly in-depth look at the story of the week, the perfect impeachment trial of Donald John Trump. Pour yourselves a martini, get cozy on your favorite sofa. The perfect impeachment is where we begin. There's so much more. Here we go. All right, Matt. We begin today. Halli has frozen brain, just so you know.
So it's cold in Florida where you live.
It's not pretty.
Is it like Florida cold at 60 or something?
No. We were down like in the high 30s.
Oh my God!
This morning, and
did you protect your oranges? Did you?
Well, we don't have any oranges on the trees right now, but I hadn't checked the buds. But and my lemon tree just finished its crop, and the iguanas are falling off the trees because they're frozen.
Oh my!
Yeah, right. People we get these days, not a whole lot of them, but they do come, and we have thin blood down here, and yikes, I tell you, the brain just goes unfrozen and exhaustion, because like a moron, I stayed up till 2 the other night, and then last night very late, and then
you're watching the impeachment.
I really want
all
Trump,
the time.
Yeah, I want Trump out of office so I can get my life back. I mean, because maybe we'll go back to like normal. This is nuts. So here we are, coming into day 3 of impeachment trial.
Yes, we're recording on Thursday. That's right.
Right. This is day 3, and it's here's how I begin, sweetie. Okay, I'll bet you anything Trump wishes Adam Schiff were working for him because wow. Were you as impressed by him as I was? I've never seen anything like that. Flawless.
He gives a good argument, I think. Even if you're a Trumpian in your heart, you have to admit he's pretty clear, and he speaks extemporaneously, or it seems extemporaneously, for long periods without pause or hesitation, and he sort of is taking about the best argument you can make for impeachment. So it's been a pretty bravura performance, and again, I'm just judging it on the sort of oratory skills.
I think oratory skills to begin with, but I think they have laid out one heck of a case with what they have. What a presentation!
Yeah. I mean, the problem on the other side is that they're not arguing their best case. I mean, it's not a problem because the votes aren't going to change in that sense, but just for the audience out there, they're not arguing their best case against impeachment because, they're speaking to an audience of one.
What is their best case against impeachment, considering the facts that have already been laid out? This guy is guilty as,
Well, I mean, I'm not saying I find it a compelling case, but I think the best is probably in the New York Times today, which is that, just because you derive political benefit from an action doesn't make it illegal. And, presidents do other things related to foreign policy that might, give them political benefit at home. Again, I don't think it's a very compelling case. I mean, the other case they could make is just, hey, they could, concede a few points and say, okay, well, maybe you shouldn't have phrased it this way, or, is tired on the call, but, come on, that's not impeachment. But they can't do that the way Clinton did in 98 and concede what he did was wrong because Trump keeps insisting the phone call was perfect.
Yeah, perfectly stupid.
I'm just saying they're reduced to saying like it was perfect, and even if it wasn't, so what?
See, and I think that New York Times piece was completely and utterly irresponsible on a host of levels. the fact is, and this is of all the things that were pointed out in the last couple of days, and not like you and I didn't know the story, hook, line, and sinker. We're like lunatics, but I keep going back to the threat on the ambassador's life. That really is how far out they went on this. And that is the core.
You mean this guy who's calling Lev?
No. I mean, she got the word that, you're in trouble.
Right.
But that didn't come from Lev. That was in her original testimony, and that came from Trump's team.
Right, from state. Right. You got to come home.
Come on. I mean, come on. This is the president of the United States orchestrating this. This is crazy stuff. And the one thing that I don't think everybody has made enough hay about is that. The life of an ambassador on foreign soil, no less.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
My only point is that the president's team doesn't have a lot to work with.
Yeah, they don't.
But they're not even working with that.
Well, the other thing, as long as we're talking about the president's teams, let's just talk very quickly. This Pat Cipollone, for starters, Matt, who I thought was so obnoxious the other day and so, his law professors must have been squirming. Where did this come from? I mean, he was just a joke, but he's also a material witness, is he not?
I believe he is. Yeah. This is not you don't. Let's just say it's not the A team.
It's not even the F team. It's not even the Z. I mean, really, there.
If you've seen Jay Sekulow on the 700 Club over the years,
well, can we get? Don't get me started.
And he's like the wise man compared to the.
And by the way, last night a story dropped that they're investigating his. I don't know. It's what do you call it? I don't think it's a charity thing, but anyway, apparently they've been laundering money to his kids through whatever this
I didn't see that
thing.
But
so he's now under because they all are. They're all a bunch of crooks, and it's like that's who they are. But
yeah, I mean, generally presidents get really good lawyers.
Yeah,
and they're getting Rudy at the end of his brain and life.
Do they even have Rudy? He won't even.
Who doesn't seem all there, and they're getting Dershowitz and Twilight and all these other people. But
I turned on Fox last night, in the middle of the night actually, when I woke up, and I was watching Laura Ingraham, and her show from last night, in which now she has somehow found these emails or something, and I mean I'm fairly intelligent, and her crap I couldn't even follow. It was so stupid. But of course, everybody who watches Fox will be nodding their head. Oh, yes, as if they understand what the hell. Because what I figured out last night after really studying her and the game that she plays, and she had Doug Collins on, of course, talking 1,000 miles a minute, making no sense either.
Yeah.
They just things. It doesn't matter what they say. It's so cynical over there. It's sad. And at what point do MAGAs, we'll call Trump's followers by that, say, you are treating us like we're idiots? Okay, stop it. The president did it. Because I'm seeing on Twitter that that's starting to happen a little bit.
Well,
some of the polls showing you that 71% want witnesses, and what have you. That can't be all Democrats or independents.
Right. Well, I don't disagree. I think there are a lot of people who think he did it. Kind of okay. So what?
No, because the poll says they want witnesses. And
removal.
And removal. 72% by the way, Reuters. And I find that Reuters is interesting because that's that's not a throwaway poll.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, ultimately it's not being played out on Twitter. It's being played out in the Senate, and these guys are not budging. There's not.
And I'm not sure about that either.
Yeah, you think we're going to have people vote for impeachment? We're going to have...
No. You have to look at this, I think, in two phases. And I think where the Dems are right now is they're making their case, but the case was an easy make. I don't think that's it. But I think what they're doing right now is they're arguing for witnesses. They're not arguing for for conviction yet. So I think all of what they've been doing for the last, 2 or 3 days is about arguing, look, guys, here's what we have. You don't want to look at the rest of this because the rest of this is going to filter out. And what are you going to do when it does? I mean, that's a problem. So you better start listening to us now, and you better come through, and you better make this, get us witnesses. I'm thinking, they're kind of they're between a rock and a hard place. That's on
the Republicans.
I think on the witness part of it, I do. Because I think the if they say no witnesses and they shut the whole thing down after all of this, and piece by piece the story between now and voting in November really starts to trickle out.
Mulvaney's going to talk in August? I mean, what's going to happen? What's going to emerge?
It's not a question of Mulvaney talking. People, this is Washington, Leaksville, USA. The stuff is, look what's happening between, I know you want to talk about Nancy and whether she did the right thing in postponing and what have you. Look what's happened just since she did that. Last night, yesterday, every day there's a drip, drip, drip.
Well, I don't deny the dripping. I just don't. We'll just see if it budges. I don't know.
You don't think that they're going to allow witnesses?
They've held tight so far, with all these party line votes about calling witnesses. Now I know Collins and others are saying, okay, we'll decide later on witnesses, but. I don't know, a week, 2 weeks from now, are they really going to say, okay, let's keep this thing going and call in Bolton or whatever? I don't know.
You're a Washington inside guy in terms of you've been around there for a long time. You know the players. You know the game. Is there anything left of, are any Jimmy Stewarts left in that town?
Mr.
Deeds goes to Washington.
Yeah, right. Mr. Smith.
Or Mr. Smith, right.
Mr. Deeds built his dream house.
Yes, right. Mr. Smith. No, that was that's my favorite movie of all
that's
time.
Mr. Blandings.
Mr. Blandings. That is my favorite book and movie.
Right.
I have the original book. I like it so
Money
much.
Pit.
Oh my God, I loved it.
Look, I don't know. There's been talk among a few Republicans about keeping an open mind on witnesses. I'm not sitting around with a lot of faith that they're going to do that. But, I don't know. It's a tumultuous time. You never know. Maybe they will call witnesses and maybe that'll actually happen and it'll be interesting. I don't know. All I do know is that it's been, super party line so far.
Well, I expected it to be a super party line in the beginning. But he did relax some of the rules, which tells me people are whispering in his ear. You're not looking.
Yeah, he let a little air out the tires.
Yeah, and that's not something he's known for doing. So I think that was somewhat telling. Everybody's now talking about Lamar Alexander, who is retiring. And his name begins with A, so when they go to talk, go
right. You already done right. When he votes, you know where it's going.
Right. So I don't know. I think
he's been really on board with Trump since 2017. He didn't really show any support for Bob Corker, his colleague in the Senate from Tennessee, who got driven out by Trump. Let's see what he does in the end. He's had a very distinguished career as governor of Tennessee, as senator, as secretary of education, presidential candidate. He's been on the scene since the 70s.
Do you want to go out?
He worked in the Nixon White House.
Right. Do you want to go out in a blaze of glory, or do you want to go out with an asterisk against you?
Well, I don't know.
One of them, history will not be kind to any of the.
Well, Orrin Hatch, got super Trumpy, and at the end of his career, before he retired last year.
But that was before all the crap happened, the really bad crap.
Well, there was at least some crap.
Well,
but your point's, look, you never know. It could be that, like, Lamar Alexander leads five. Could be. Could be. I mean,
you are Mr. Cynical this morning, and I'm Mr.
Well, you have no faith in Republicans. And most of the time, you have no faith in Republicans.
I was going to say the end of my sentence was this is a switch because I think.
Yeah, usually you're like.
Yeah, I'm like I'm because I'm hopeful. I was so in such a negative state on all of this and have been the voice of negativity. And I'm like, please, oh, please, oh, please. By the way, 11 million viewers. What was the last thing, the big deal? That was the same 11 million viewers. I thought that was interesting.
I can't
remember what it was, but it was the same 11 million. So I was going back to look, but I didn't have time this morning. So Mr. Roberts, maybe we should start with the talk.
Chief Justice
Roberts. I call him Mr. Roberts.
Presiding over the Senate trial.
We go back to, before we get into that, it may become part of the conversation, but talk is, amongst people I talk with, there's a schism between Jerry Nadler and Adam Schiff.
Yeah, I think that's been.
I think that's true.
Yeah, reported and certainly.
So they had the original press conference right before it all starts, and Schiff took the mic away from Nadler. And he was right, because Nadler always puts his foot in his mouth. He's just not good on the fly. But Nadler, kind of went after Republicans, and, I think he was right, because they are covering up.
Well, right. I mean, there are Senate rules about how you're supposed to address people. If you're in the
please. Oh, please.
Well, I'm just saying these are things that have been adhered to for a long time, even by.
And that includes the 12
sides.
Republican senators who left the floor, even though they were told not to, or what's it called?
I'm just saying that's like one of the things in the Senate is if you're in the well, you don't address people.
Yes,
who are at their desks,
right.
And it's an easy thing to catch, and it's something. Roberts did on both sides, gentle rebuke. I think it only got a lot of attention because it was a TV clip that they could use, but its significance was, de minimis.
I say it because, fight fire with fire. I mean, the biggest problem I think the Dems have had all along, and, I've said this to you 1,000 times, they never do. They play by the rules and the Republicans don't, and then there you go. And it was a nice moment as far as I was concerned. Stop playing by the rules because you lose. That said, Chief Justice Roberts seems to be taking the tack of, I'm just be the bump on the log.
Yeah, well, I think that's right. I don't think he's intervening strongly. Rehnquist didn't the last time either.
But at least he had his stripes.
He had the stripes on his robe, right? His, like inspired by the Mikado or some Gilbert and Sullivan play. It was.
He's a character, that one.
He was a character. I think Roberts. I think he's mindful of wanting to, not mix it up with the other branches of government. I think he's worried about the institution of the court, and I think he's going to take a very passive role. I mean, look, potentially he could be ordering witnesses to appear, and making the Senate overrule him. I mean, if you had a different kind of Chief Justice there, it would look very different. But I agree with you. I think he's going to be very passive.
Yeah, but he is an institutionalist, and I'm just wondering how much he puts up with the crap, and if he starts to see that this thing is being made into a farce, which we'll know in 2 days, because once the Republicans start, you'll see just how farcical it can become.
Well, let's see. I mean,
that would be.
I think you can't underestimate how sort of technically difficult it is to be in the chair if you've never done it before, and to be up there for a long period.
Yeah, he can't fall asleep.
You can't doze off. You got to listen. You have to say things a certain way. It's different than the Supreme Court. We'll see. But, anyone who's looking to him to intervene
to save
dramatically,
the day, if you will.
or whatever, I think it's a pretty passive role. And remember, the Senate can always overrule him. Like, if he did step in, they can, it's like if the jury was allowed to overturn what a judge said.
So let's move to this story, part of the story, which is, the talk is if they allow witnesses, Ted Cruz, trade Biden for Bolton. And,
this seems crazy.
Schumer seems to have shut it down, but other people haven't. And
Biden kind of shut it down.
I forget who it was this morning who said, "Why not? Just do it," because Biden has no problem. There was no corruption there. I mean, period, end of conversation. The kid may have done, I say kid, he's a grown man, obviously, but the kid may have, trafficked on his father's name, but in no way was anything ever found through any
right
that there was.
Well, that's it's a gamble with Biden if you put him on a.
So is Bolton, by the way.
He's a Democratic frontrunner who's sometimes is a little shaky on the stump. People are watching his age and among other things.
But they're saying bring Hunter in too. I mean, they're saying, they don't stipulate.
But that's, that's almost to concede that, that's the issue in the trial.
Well,
I mean, it's like giving, it's giving.
Oh, I'm not arguing for it. I'm simply saying that it's out there.
No, it's out there. It was out there. I think it's kind of done, but you never know. It could come back.
By the way, my optimism.
Well, look, it would be incredible spectacle if he were.
Oh my God! Well, it's a spectacle already. It'll be a spectacle.
And it's already a spectacle. It'll be a spectacular spectacle. I wouldn't count, by the way, for Democrats on Bolton to do their work for them.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree with that. The one that I think is, I wish they could get is Mulvaney, and the reason is. He already showed what an idiot he can be, then he puts foot in mouth big time. So I think he would be a much more devastating witness because, everybody does it. Get over it. What else?
Well, that's the problem is they have to appeal to the boss. And so they wind up in verbal, tripping over themselves.
Is there any point that you can, in any way, in your most wild imagination, say, we're done with you, Trump. Pence. We'll take Pence. Do you see that?
Can I see 17 Republicans doing that? They seem so immovable. I mean, it would take...
What would it take?
It would take him and Putin performing abortions together. And even then, I'm not sure. I mean, that's kind of like what you would need to shake the foundations. I just don't. You just don't see it. As I do. I just don't see the movement there. I mean, if anything, they're going the opposite way.
No, I don't see that. I don't see that.
I mean, you see someone like Richard Burr, right, who chairs the Senate Intelligence Committee, who
he's retiring, isn't he?
No, Burr's not retiring. I don't think he is.
Oh, I get confused sometimes, particularly when I'm cold.
I think he's running again. Or Tillis is up in North Carolina. But in any event, Burr, you don't see Burr. You don't see other ones with close races like Gardner of Colorado and John Gertz of Iowa moving.
But we don't know because I don't think that they're in a position right now to say what they're doing or to signal what they might be thinking. I think I think they have to see what happens after they see the presentation by Trump's idiots. So
right. But it's going to take. I think it's going to take something sort of nuclear to move them, not just a doofy presentation by Jay Sekulow.
Yeah, right. Well, the other part was how many had said, "Oh, I didn't know that," And we learn how many of them had not been paying attention to this at all, which to my mind is like weird and scary. What are these guys doing? Because they're not passing any legislation. Hello. Just odd. Very, very, very odd. On that. You were listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern at hallicasserjayne.com and is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Find us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, on all your favorite apps. You'll find the podcast on your Alexa device too. Just say the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. Oh, and come play with me on Twitter at the Halli CJ Show. So I guess where we are on this is we have to leave it until the next time we talk because we don't know. But I am going to state for the record that I think Democrats made extraordinary strides in getting the story out, that a lot of people didn't know. And if this continues, I'm be interested to see how the polls alter. And they didn't lose ground, which they could. No. And I think that's a really great thing. And if anything, they gain ground. And your overall, as we get off this subject and move on to the next.
My overall is that I agree with you. They've made a strong case. The Republicans still aren't moving in the Senate, at least for now. And this thing is still going to head towards an inevitable conclusion of him being acquitted. And the thing that I do worry about is he's going to be super emboldened by this and, to do whatever he wants in terms of, politicizing foreign policy and anything else. So,
right. And you then have to get to the question as to, does this not go into these Republicans' minds who go on, by the way? I mean, let's assume he's not reelected. Let's assume he loses it as a result of this. And by the way, you start looking at some of that stuff and you see the matchups that they showed this morning since this all started, and Trump is like failing against almost every single Democrat running. They're looking at the same stuff I'm looking at and you're looking at, and they have to be saying to themselves, well, what happens if we let this go and the next person comes in and it's not one of ours, it's one of theirs? It really does get down to it's a constitutional crisis.
I think it's, I think if Trump's acquitted, it'll be emboldening to him personally, but I think to any future president of either party
there are no rules.
Yeah.
There become no rules. There become no rules, and we become the banana republic. That's what we become. There will be no difference because there's they answer to no one. Literally, if this is allowed to stand the way it is, they will have no Congress to answer to. They have complete executive privilege. They are a dictator. I mean, Americans at some point, and by the way, I'm glad I said that because the other thing I did want to talk to you about briefly was the Democrats' messaging. They're very bad at messaging. That should be a video that is on Facebook, on everything. Here's what
I thought you were saying how good they've been.
They have been good in terms of how they handled it and put the story out in the Senate. Yes, in the trial. Yeah, they've been great on that. But what they don't know how to do, which the Republicans do, is they don't know how to take it and turn it into social media. That's why Facebook is owned by Republicans. They don't do that well. They need to do that better. There are pieces that I keep seeing and go, wow, what a video that would make for the Democrats. That's devastating. I see that the No Trumpers group, whatever their name is these days, they've been putting out some videos. I don't know if they're going on TV, but they're definitely going online. And oh my gosh, some of them are just wow. But the Democrats aren't. So I think they need to work on that.
Okay.
Let's get to election 2020 because Iowa is approaching. And I say to myself, does it even matter? Does it even matter?
Why wouldn't it?
Because, I don't think people are on the impeachment part number 1. And even if this is a month, 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away, or whatever, I'm beginning to think that it's all so bunched up and so crazy, and it's so white. And it's so obscure, by the way, the caucuses. I'm not sure, particularly, and with Mike Bloomberg coming in and him going down the road, and he'll be coming in there. I don't.
Well, Iowa doesn't pick a winner, but it doesn't pick the nominee.
Supposedly sets the stage.
Well, I mean, it tends to clear, and Pete Buttigieg comes in. Just suppose he comes in 5th in the state where he's supposed to be doing best. I think that'll take a lot of the wind out of his sails, and it could move Amy Klobuchar off the map. And if Bernie wins, I mean, look, it's not going to decide the nominee. It's a long process, but it does historically have an effect, and there's no reason to think it won't this time.
So last week they started pushing Bernie. The press.
Who's they?
The press.
Press. Because the poll. Yeah, because
no,
the polls.
Before the polls.
And the crowds.
Nope. They did it before the polls. Then the polls.
You think the press is pro Bernie, or you think they're just pro contest?
No, it's contest. They do it all. They did it. Remember, you thought, first they talked. Oh, she's going to be, or Amy's going to be the one, or this one's going to be. There's the flavor of the week.
Sure.
Okay. So that's so the flavor of the week then very, very out of nowhere became Bernie. And as soon as you're a well-known flavor and you become the flavor of the week, then your poll numbers catapult. I thought those polls were weird. How many points was he up? 14 in a week? Nah, I don't buy it. I totally don't buy it. But
right. But I think his strength has been underestimated by the pundit class for a while now.
That's possible. I think
he's getting written off as yesterday's man. But
he did have a heart attack.
Yeah, but he only looks better after the heart attack.
Well, they opened up his arteries. Hello, he's getting blood.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying he's doing the heart attack seems to have been a bit, a plus.
Yeah. I find him horrifying. I first of all, I think I've said this to you, and if I haven't, I'm going to say I don't get the Bernie burn. I don't get it. I've never gotten it.
Well, it's not where you're at.
It's not even a question of that. I just look at him and he just looks like a rumpled, dirty, old, curmudgeon-y,
You've got a lot
communist.
Of those down in Florida.
Communist.
He's not a communist. He's not a communist.
We don't know. I mean, he's a particular
Yes, we do.
type.
He's not a communist.
All right, so what is he? He's certainly a left wing, left of left.
Don't be Halli McCarthy.
It's like, oh my God. I don't see the excitement.
Well, I know he's not your thing, but
No, not even on it. Take the politics out. Just looking at the man. Just looking at him as a character.
But that's been the appeal since, last.
So
that he's like the most, he's not at all telegenic, and people like that stuff.
So he rises by these extraordinary, and I think the first national poll, he's ahead of Biden by a point or something,
right.
Whatever, probably in the margin of error.
Yeah,
and all that, all within this week. Let me get to the point, which I've been trying to make for 5 minutes. And
sorry.
It's okay. But the point is, now that I've forgotten the point, there he is. And, this New York Times endorsement plays into this because the young uns, by the way, at the New York Times who were on the board to make this decision, and they come out in favor of 2 women, one very left wing and one very right wing. If you put it in the context of the fight, which is, again, the fight that's in the Democratic Party. And there's Bernie. That's why I brought up Bernie and brought up the New York Times endorsements of Warren and Amy, center left and center right. I think there's something there. And I think, I'm worried for the Democratic Party because you're not going to tell me Bernie can win, because he can't. If he gets the nomination. Your thoughts?
Well, I think it's unlikely Bernie would beat Trump. I agree. I think it's, I think Trump is in a pretty weak position for a reelect, but yeah, I don't think a self-declared socialist is that gives the Republicans a lot to work with, to say the least. I will raise your taxes.
Give me
you
more.
will pay a bit more in taxes, but you will get so much more in benefits.
It's wild. Yeah, it's.
I do, but look, he's can he become the nominee? Yeah.
Well, anybody become nominee.
I think he'll have a big anybody but Bernie, stop him at all costs.
Or Elizabeth.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of them could be the nominee. I'm just saying, he's in a pretty,
He's burning.
Look, they all have less than a 50-50 chance, but one of them is going to get it.
Well, the thing about it is that while the press is playing with the flavor of the week, Mike Bloomberg is gaining a foothold, which nobody is really discussing.
Well, right. The question is whether he's basically just a super PAC bashing Trump, or is he going to actually get votes?
I keep your eye on Bloomberg. That's my thing. While they're all hashing it out, and Biden is, this not so strong character. For various and sundry reasons, and I would not like to put that on. Trump was successful because I don't think that. I think Biden's problems are Biden. I'm saying much that Mike Bloomberg, and honestly, if you get the emotions out of it, or even your ideology out of it, he becomes a really interesting character to go up against Trump. He really does. He's been a Republican. He's been a Democrat.
He's been independent,
and he's rich. So I think that he's keep your eyes on Bloomberg, because he hasn't been the flavor of the month yet, or the week yet. So that's where I am on him.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
So you got anything else on election 2020?
Not really. I mean, I was one of these people who, there was some room for club run, and that doesn't seem to be happening. You never know what happens the last week in Iowa, but no, we'll see what happens with the ones who are bunched up in the lead.
And
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the Pete Buttigieg we may have already had peak Buttigieg.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah.
But who knows? The caucuses are so crazy. People, it's not a secret ballot. People, once your first choice falls below 15, you have to move across the room physically and join another team. I mean, it's like three-dimensional chess,
And
you can't attack the other guys too much because you want to pick up their people.
Right. It's a game. There is a game to it, and most people don't understand how the whole thing works. It's just very confusing to most people, I think.
Right.
But Andrew Yang also is another one who's out there who I find him fascinating. And
well, he picked up the the endorsement from your gal today. Marion.
Yeah, Marion.
He's got the Williamson.
He's got
the all important Williamson.
Yeah, that was given as far as I was concerned. It was either him or Buttigieg, but I find him fascinating. But I want to bring him up because I think there is something in this that hasn't gotten enough talk, and that is we are also at a generational changing point here. It's before the change. It's the beginning of the change, and you can see it as the boomers are retiring, so to speak, and and even in that New York Times endorsement, the people who were in that were all the young left wing, a lot of blacks, on that panel who made this decision. They're the ones who are on MSNBC on Saturdays. They're not yet ready for prime time, and they're screaming, yeah, Bernie, yeah, no Biden. I mean, yeah, Yang. So the youth is always wasted on the young. We were all left of left when we were young, and you get older, you move a little bit more center. And I feel that that's in play here too. That there's this, we're passing the baton to a different generation, and the passing has begun. And it may be that within both parties you're going to see some changes.
Well, I mean, sure, eventually you have to. Right now I think it's still the septuagenarians.
But you see the fight. But you see the fight. Yeah.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, you're going to see. Look, I think Trump and to a lesser extent Obama changed the rules about what people expect from a president in terms of previous experience. And there was a time when someone it raised eyebrows if someone had just been a state senator for a couple of terms and then was still in their first term in the Senate running for president. Now with Trump, you got somebody who's, never served in a governmental office and who's, certifiable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the door is open to Yangs and all kinds of different people to run for president, for better or worse. So in addition to the generational thing.
And then there is the Trump effect too, because I think that plays into some of this as well. I mean, all rules are completely and totally gone. And so we'll have to wait to see. But I think that was worth injecting into.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's fascinating. Okay, so we're gonna do a different segment, unless if you finish with the election thing right now.
I'm done.
I want to go into something new. I think we should do more of this. While you weren't looking.
Right, while you weren't looking.
While you weren't looking, Michael Avenatti.
Not good.
Who, went up against Trump, representing the porn star, and then was arrested for all sorts of bad deeds, was out on bail, and was picked up last week, and not only thrown in jail for a so-called bail violation, he was put in El Chapo's cell, and there he sits. Please, do not tell me that this isn't Trump.
Oh, well, I may tell you that. I mean, he's there seem to be a number of, prosecutions against him from people who are not Trump.
Come on. Putting him in El Chapo's cell in and of itself, if you ask me, was, oy. I mean, that's
if you go to the MCC, the federal holding facility in Manhattan, it's had so many famous people go through there. You're going to be in somebody's cell. You're going to be in.
This guy, he's the hammer has come down.
But you're not saying he's being unfairly persecuted, or maybe you are.
Maybe I am. I'm not saying that there isn't a case against him. Don't misunderstand me. But it's
everyone against Stormy Daniels. It's local prosecutors.
Well, that's what
Democratic
I'm saying.
LA. I mean, everybody's the guy clearly was,
no question
kind of unhinged.
Well, I don't know how unhinged he was. He was he was going along just fine, thank you very much, and hadn't been jailed or accused or any of those other things until he took on the wild case of Stormy Daniels. So I'm just saying,
but that's when he got the crazy fame and started with the
But it wasn't like he wasn't known, because he was. I mean,
he had a moderate degree.
Yeah, he in some circles he was known. I'm just saying, I know.
I mean, he's up against Nike and.
Well, that's big. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But
I'm just saying it's not. If it were just Trump and were just a federal case, I could see where you're coming from.
I don't know, but there's been a lot of the stuff with people who you think should be investigated, and Barr does seem to have his hand in an awful lot of
No, I would never disagree with you about Barr. I agree.
Okay, so I just
But
thought I'd throw that
in
out.
any event, I
fun.
see it just more as just like one of the most incredible rapid rises and falls.
Yeah, it really, it'll make a great film.
I remember when he was going to run for president.
Oh yeah, and he still has followers on, or he had followers on Twitter until such time as he was arrested and couldn't tweet. Here's another while you weren't looking. Trump's on his way back from Davos, and he announces in the middle of the night that he's going after entitlements. Hello.
Yeah, that was his thing that differentiated him from Republicans in 2016, that he was going to protect entitlements, and so much for that.
He's got to pay the bills for his rich people. Why not on the backs of the poor? Again, here's, we keep getting focused on stuff, and we're not focused where we need to be focused all the time. We're just focused on one thing, and that's the danger of a guy like Trump doing what the crazy that he needs to do. And also why you weren't looking. Giselle Maxwell, who was the dame who got Epstein all the women,
right.
Girls, her private emails were hacked. No, gosh, I hope they show up in the public sphere.
Yeah, well, that would be interesting.
Because again, that name Attorney General Barr, and what happened to Epstein, and there's stuff going on, Matt, that's just, maybe it's always been there, but it seems to be more of it. That's questionable. Okay.
Yeah, I hear you.
All right. Soldiers have bad headaches. How'd you like that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so, it turns out that people were injured in the Iran attack, in case you hadn't heard it, because they buried it.
Right.
And it turns out that they were not, they didn't lose limbs. They just had bad concussions that are, that is always with these kind of attacks, brain injury is massive in modern warfare. And,
right.
They are suffering unmercifully, because if you've ever seen anybody who's had that kind of damage to their brain, and it's awful to watch, and it's painful.
Yeah, no, the concussive power of these things.
Yeah, it's just, it's ridiculous. And the president's answer to that was, well, they have bad headaches.
Yeah.
What's wrong with this man? What is wrong with this man? I mean, why does anybody think this is a normal human being? Please tell me.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to respond, I mean, it's all about whether he wants to respond to the Iranian attack with more attacks, and he doesn't, so he's downplaying the injuries. I think it's good he doesn't want to follow up on that attack with another round of attacks, but to diminish the suffering of the troops that are always being lauded by both.
Yeah, he also last week did that thing with they're all babies and whatever. I mean, and these are the people.
Right. Right. Well, that's the new book from the Washington Post reporters that reports an incident from 2017, right, where he goes over the Pentagon. He's in the secure briefing room known as the tank, and he just starts having a fit. Yeah.
Okay. So,
he's bad news. I agree with you.
Yeah. But he has low ratings with the military right now, which I find fascinating. Because they, it's always, thoughts and prayers, and we love you.
Right.
Yeah, whatever. I have to say, everything, he goes after the entitlements, and he goes after, the military, and these are all the people who vote for him, and he just does it, and they keep on going, isn't he wonderful? And I go, well, when are you people going to start voting for your best interests? And, then my brain gets a concussion trying to figure out what's wrong with these folks if they don't get them. But okay. There's a Chinese virus. It's turning, could be a pandemic. They just shut down most of China today, which is pretty scary. And, case in the U.S. Now they're saying there might have been a cover up. They knew about it long before they said anything to anybody about it. But, my senator, Scott, did a tweet. Oh, we've got this under control. CDC. Da, 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 da. Do you know how much money Trump cut from the CDC?
Yeah.
Rendering
I don't,
a lot, and massive. And at the time that they did it, they were warned. This is you're cutting off your. So I would just like to say, this is scary. Because I don't know, they're prepared for something like this, and
yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from.
So Tricky Ricky, as I call Senator.
It is. I mean, look, I think there's an assumption that at some point there's going to be a real pandemic, and we're not really ready for it.
Right, and it's happened before, So,
it has happened before,
right? And they were not prepared for it back then. But this is, we're into a new century, you would think, but no. And then there's this story. The Saudis hacked Jeff Bezos. And Trump then gave them nuclear secrets 2 minutes later.
Right. I mean, if a supposed ally can, kill an American-based journalist and tap the phone of our wealthiest mogul in order to essentially blackmail him. What can't they do?
And that's the Saudis.
And that's our allies, the Saudis, right?
It's terrifying. On that note, darling.
Okay. Well, I mean, what a week.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Well, we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week. Good night.
For Impeachment Watch.
Good night, George.
All right. Good night. Good night.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a production of Resec LLC. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, and is available at hallicasserjayne.com and on all your favorite apps. Be sure to visit us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and follow me on Twitter at The Halli CJ Show. Until next time, this is Halli Casser-Jayne.